I'll go. I'll take real quick. Well, when you're talking about the platonic solids, the best way to encounter your tunnel vision is connected to manifestation. That is your interstellar vortex portal in order to tap into that energy. So it's all based upon the mind magic.
Absolutely, absolutely. Every single physical object that we can look at in this universe, in this realm, at first was a thought. Especially when we talk about buildings, ornaments, objects, inventions, everything that we look at in this society. At first, it was existing in the fourth dimensional realm. So, I believe BDELL he's dead on with that assessment.
Yeah, because that's connected to the mental plane, which is called, I think that's called the abode of the Most High, I believe, when you go on the path of Masut, after you become a neophyte.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's my take on that.
Absolutely.
Rod, you want to close that out, Rod?
Yeah. So BDELL gave you what's called the mechanics of the operation.
Mm-hmm.
Right. What I'm about to tell you here is what you're building using those mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
You know that symbol that they call it looked like the star of life. That's what it's called. It looked like the lotus flower.
The hexa.
Okay. Platonic solids, when encapsulated with a thought form, each one of them have a place in there that you can only see when you look at it holographically. Now remember, the observer collapses the wave into a particle. And if the observer infuses the collapse with intention, the collapse is going to arrive at the destination of what you perceive fourth dimensional mind matrix. The fourth dimension mind matrix is drawing all of the information from what you put in. So spiritual people, once you understand what each one of the shapes means, the energy that they carry, and you use it according to its own frequency, you using it like a conjure tool, like witches use and magicians use magic wands. It becomes a tool that you don't need to use in the 3D world, because now you can use the understanding of the frequency of the platonic solids to encapsulate it with the desire that match that frequency, and then you can psychically send it back to its position in the star of life, and it's going to project your path back to you in the mirror effect, as above, so below. 6/9 in the balance.
Very interesting.
It's all about perspective and angle. So Brother Polite was giving you a science.
Right.
Brother BDELL just told you the mechanics of how the science works.
Yeah.
Right. And what I was just telling you is what they doing that y'all not being explained between the two. Right. So it's like reading tarot cards. The tarot cards is the training wheels for the psychic perception to be honed in. This is with anything you manifesting. If you don't make any effort, it just delays the result. And this is why they say if you take one step toward God, God take 2 steps towards you. Because you're mirroring yourself in your manifestation, you harnessing your God frequency. By using the power of your mind and imagination fused together, right brain, left brain, abstract linear logic. You telling the universe, translate this into my reality when this wave collapses into this particle. And you arrive at your destination like you was riding on the escalator.
You are the universe experiencing itself.
Right.
No, facts. So let me ask you this. I want to know moving forward. Now we're talking about a new species, a new being created. One thing, I was just talking to what's his name, Billy, yesterday, and we was talking about. I asked him about ancestral veneration within the Black community and how big it is, and us asking our ancestors for guidance. Now, let's say if we're a new species and we're getting ready to do something that hasn't been done before, or a lot of our ancestors that passed on aren't aware of. Do you think it would be just as beneficial moving forward in this new paradigm? The same way we practice ancestral veneration, should we practice, I guess you could call it future self veneration, where we ask our future selves for the same help, the same way we do our ancestors, because the future selves know exactly what we need so that they could incarnate into this realm and do the things that they already did, since time doesn't really exist. They know exactly what we need to do, so when they incarnate, they could fulfill their destiny. Should we practice future self veneration the same way we do ancestral? And I see Rod smiling. So Rod, why don't you start this, Rod? I see he's smiling.
Look, Khalil Brown got a poem talking about the parent is the bow and the arrow is the child that the parent shoots into the future.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Why do you raise your child the way that you raise them? Are you raising them to make better choices than you did? Or are you raising them to make worse choices? Most parents that love their child is going to try to give them the understand and know how to make the best choices and to always choose the choice that's best. Right? That's you talking to your future self. All your future incarnations, you programming them into your child, because he's going to live it out and he's going to take and refine it, and he's going to feed it further into the future, more refined than it was when you sent them out.
Right.
So when we talk about breaking generational curses and ancestral reverence and things of this nature, these are frequencies that our DNA is using, this frequency from past ancestry. Right. If you take one person out your ancestry 10,000 years ago, you ain't here. You don't exist.
That's right.
Every single ancestor you had was necessary for you to be Brother Rich.
That's facts.
Take one of them out, you ain't Brother Rich no more. You don't. Instead of having a mind awakening podcast, you're gonna be a rap star and you're gonna be taking Tupac's spot. Because your frequency would be different, so your life purpose would be different. And the way that you play it out is all of the accumulation of the ancestors that understand each one of the problems you face. You don't call on your plumber ancestor when you need an electrician ancestor to tell you how to fix these wires. But if you call on the plumber, you perfect the task because you download the correct frequency. Right? And the same with the ancestral reverences, keeping a communication with your inner self, which is the ancestral realm that talks to all the way through the DNA. You communicating with all the ancestral frequencies in your DNA, and the more reverence you give them, you purify the energy. The energy is always purified through love, honor, and respect. But if you want your worst ancestors to come, you do the exact opposite, and they'll show up too. But no matter what frequency you're on, you're going to be tuned in to a series of ancestors that produced you.
Got you. BDELL1014.
Yeah. One thing you got to understand is the delineation between the gematria body and the Zohar body. Now, the gematria body is basically tether connected to the simulation. So that means that the gematria body in itself is being manipulated by the neutrinos, and the neutrinos are basically particles of antimatter, or what you call Holy Ghost particles. And those Holy Ghost particles is tapped into your higher self, which is known as your Zohar body. Your Zohar body is connected to basically these forms of gamma radiation that's amalgamating with the carbon body. So that basically means that your ancestors is living through you in order for you to tap into your higher states of consciousness that put you on evolution as far as like you being at your higher stuff or whatever. So the same thing is as far as like what's taking place in the cosmos is bringing that energy here when it comes to that aspect of it. So the, you know, so that's why I was saying, like, as far as like, you know, the gematria body is basically an encryption over the body that is basically being controlled by electronic devices and things of that nature. But we breaking out of that spell right now, which is what we.
But also, that also tie into the numbers in your life that become prominent importance for you to see where you're going.
Okay.
Because the gematria just translating to what the numbers you reading the binary code now.
Facts.
And now when you tell them what the gematria mean and translated form, you reading the streamers like them people sitting behind the keyboard on the Matrix. So your perception is being fine-tuned in order for you to be able to explain to them what it is they're looking at.
Okay. RG, did you add on to that? I stepped off a second. Or are you good? Or
me personally, when I think of like calling on the ancestors and things of that nature, like I always
ancestors versus moving in the future, future selves, like calling on our future selves. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I know there's a difference between our physical avatar and then who we really are, which is an accumulation of dark energy and ether energy consciousness. And when we call on specific ancestors, I believe we have to be very careful because, you know, we had ancestors that operated on a very high frequency. We had ancestors that operated on a very low frequency. So, you know, it's always, you know, very beneficial to do very diligent research on who is who down the line in your bloodline.
If you don't correct the ancestry that come to you on a frequency, let's say it's alcoholism. You got an alcoholic uncle that want to live vicarious through you, so he want to influence you to rock his frequency by consuming mass amounts of alcohol. Then he can take control. But it's not really him, it's the frequency that's trying to be in control of the life. And when you block down the frequency, you activate the frequencies that's more to your liking to run interference on your behalf called spiritual protection. It's part of shadow work.
So I asked a question. I asked this question. One person I asked this question to before. It was either Seven Beaumont or Billy Carson. I forget. And I'm gonna like remix the question a little bit. But basically, we're in this era of spirituality where we're taught to be positive and say affirmations and say what you want out loud and repeat it as many times as you want. From experience in life, and I heard Seven talk about this the other day on his show also. From my experience, sometimes when I'm the loudest about my mantras or I'm the loudest about what I want, I don't get sabotaged from people in the outside world. It almost seems like something inside me sabotages things. So it seems like the louder I get, I done gave out all the intel. Now some motherfucker inside of me knows how to counter it and do what they got to do for, like, let's say you want to get a new car and you keep saying you want to get a new car, right? You're about to get you say it out loud. Then all of a sudden the weirdest shit in the world happens so that you don't get this new car. But sometimes a person is quiet about it. He moves in silence and he gets the car like that. I want to ask you, is there something, and I heard Seven talked about frequencies wanting to stay alive. So let's say you have a frequency of misery or whatever that exists within you. that frequency wants to stay alive. So when you want to be happy, that frequency will rebel, and something will pop up in your life out of nowhere, and that could be that frequency trying to stay alive. How do we communicate with these frequencies that may exist within us and let them know, hey, listen, I'm going to the next level. You ain't got to ruin shit. You ain't got to do no wild shit. You don't fuck shit up. But I am going to get to this next level. I'm going to save a little room for you to exist. But I'm going to get here. Like, how do we do that? How do we just just be positive, but to being realistic and saying, listen, this frequency is going to fight back if I try to do this. How can I communicate it and form a truce with it, like nations form truces with each other so that they can live in peace and harmony with each other?
Sometimes conquest is necessary.
Say that again?
Sometimes conquest is necessary.
Explain, Rod. Explain.
There's usually an example of sometimes two nations with opposing views can make a treaty of agreement. Sometimes they can't. And when that happens, it might be required from one of them to conquer the other one in order for them to even find a semblance of peace between the two. Conquest becomes necessary. When you're looking at the energies and you're doing the shadow work, the frequency that you exercise the most is going to be the strongest. And so when that energy rebel, if you don't have sufficient practice on the new energy, the energy that you choose, the energy that you used to is going to come back up and interfere with your process. This is what you're talking about. If you're looking at everything from 3D matrix, and we believe that the 3D is the answer. But the answer comes in spiritually, translates mentally, and plays out physically. So when you face with those energies, that means that you haven't built up the energies required to meet your task because you haven't done enough due diligence to build that energy momentum up.
Right. Gotcha.
Interesting.
Well, based on my own observation, when it comes, I call it, keeping your cup full to where you're not leaking energy. So sometimes when you say certain things that you're going to do, sometimes it doesn't like materialize in physical form. So sometimes it's just best to keep certain things to yourself in order to harness that energy, because it helps you tap into your telepathic abilities to where you're able to manipulate certain timelines and time dilation in order to, make certain things, manifest or whatever. Right. So like I said, I call it, leaking energy. When I say I'm going to do something, I don't tell a lot of people. I just kind of keep it mental, and I just conserve the information, and then I just, let it materialize.
Gotcha.
That's the key point in ceremonial magic as well.
Yep, you can telekinetically block somebody's plans, somebody's potential manifestation. There were instances where people were surrounding somebody that was like in an emergency situation, and they were like critically injured, and they did like a seance, like over 100 people like did a seance over somebody who was like injured, and that person was healed within a matter of like a few minutes. And the ancients called that energy the power of the Ka, the Ka, and that proves that we have those metaphysical, those supernatural powers. Like everything that manifests itself in the physical has to start out mental. It has to start out in the fourth dimension. And just like BDELL said, as far as like your plans, what you have going, you don't want to say that around too many people, because these days, you never know who's watching, you never know who's listening. At the end of the day, you never know somebody's thought process, what somebody's true intentions are. So a lot of times people say their plans out in public and it gets telekinetically knocked down,
Right. Yeah, because non-corporeal demons can block manifestation frequencies.
Oh, yeah.
Remember, the most common form of cursed magic in the world. The most common form is called ill wish. When
What's
you
that?
you wishing that somebody tell you they're finna do something great, and you don't wish them well, you wish that they don't succeed.
Mm.
You projecting the energy, and the people around you, if they the ones that's projecting that energy, they can trigger your self-sabotage because you don't want that person to benefit from your prosperity.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Controlling your energy, right? And that's why I say when you do the magic circle, you are symbolically putting yourself in the position of creator, right? And until you see your creation, the creation is being created, or else you would have already seen it if it was past tense created. But while all these things are in the process of creation, you can't see them until they're created. It's process, and the energy that you put in the development of it, processing energetically, the faster you can cause the physical effect of bringing that into your reality that they call manifestation. It's the focusing of the energy, the control of the energy, and the understanding of the energy is required to do either of the two.
Mm-hmm.
Once you understand how the energy works, and then you can capitalize greatest. That's why you go back to the platonic solids. They all got something in common with the desire to put it back into the creation flower in order for it to manifest into the 3D. Right? It's frequency.
Indeed. So I started out an amazing show so far. Shout out to everybody in the chat once again. Share this chat with a loved one. We got about 3,700 people in the chat right now. Amazing show so far. I started out talking about Bobby Hemmett. Giving respect to Bobby Hemmett and saying how he said a new species was going to be formed from everything that transpired in America. So if you think about America and you think about who we call the African American man, and so much talk is always focused on them when the Olympics come around and we see the Black Americans dominate the Olympics, track and field, basketball, all types of different sports. I want to know if we call the Caucasian the 6 ether beings and we have all these names and they don't have a certain amount of melanin, right? And certain people look at African Americans as not being pure Black people because, our complexion was lighting up throughout the mixing process.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it that it seems, or why is it that Bobby's talking about, or why are we seeing those group of people excel being mixed with this group of people who they say are lesser, but we see these group of people being the most influential people in the entire world, where anything that this group of people does, the entire world tries to emulate. No matter what race, color, gender, creed they are, they want to emulate this group of people that went through this whole process in America. So if we were diluted, they some people will say we were diluted. Like you dilute something, you make it weaker. It seems like we got stronger during the process, and we're like super people now. Like we think of shit, we do shit, jazz, hip hop, all the shit we have invented. There's over 50,000 patents from African Americans. Half the shit we use in our home is from African Americans during a certain period. So why we got diluted? Why does it seem like we rose even further up?
Somebody highly innovative, highly intelligent, highly energetic, someone who has a large accumulation of vitality that is connected to the amount of neuromelanin produced in the blood from the pineal gland. And the people that have the highest concentration of that neuromelanin in the blood are the so-called Black Americans.
That's a fact, because where's your African Michael Jackson? Where's your African Michael Jordan? Where's your African Tupac?
That's right.
All the greats come from this geographical landmass that we call America that was Atlantis. So as far as like our melanin count, our neuromelanin count, which is the brain and central nervous system melanin, we have an influx of melanocytes that taps into a certain intelligence that basically makes us pioneers, basically.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's right.
Brother Woods, I love these guys.
Huh? What you say, Rod?
I love these guys.
Get Rod. Close that question out, Rod. Get Rod.
Okay. So we got to remember that they are telling us stuff in plain sight.
Yeah, come on, come on.
All right. They're giving us the feedback off the reality.
Yes.
You got to go to the names of the epithets that they call America throughout what they call the lodge systems, the churches. America is known as the great melding pot.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. The place where you come for bounty, the land of milk and honey.
Mm-hmm.
One drop of blood makes you one of us.
Mm.
Okay.
So what we're looking at is evolution being controlled from external forces, from the agency of man.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You ever hear Bobby talk about the great debauchery?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. And the symbol for the medical field, the caduceus, is also the ancient symbol for DNA.
Mm-hmm.
The great debauchery was tampering with the human genome in the laboratory.
Okay.
This created a condition that was producing birth defects at an alarming rate. Enki gives them the remedy in the Sumerian tablets. The remedy to correct the errors in the genome is to give them the Anunnaki blood.
Mm. Mm.
So the royal families of all of the participating families of the Galactic Council sent down people with so-called celestial royal blood to correct the great debauchery. This is what put us in the Pleiadian light lock, the Van Allen belt.
Okay.
The people believe is the firmament.
Right.
But it's part of a conjure network for multiple celestial groups. It's backed up by a Arcturian radiation matrix. This is why they can't get past the Van Allen belt unless they find what's called space windows.
Space. Hold up, Ross. Say unless they find space. What?
Windows. They call them atmospheric windows.
Okay.
So it's like unlocking a combination lock to get on the other side of the Van Allen belt.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Basically, like an energy field over the earth that's used as a soul trap, you know, to keep us here.
Right.
That's what people call it, the soul trap. But it's part of the infinity loop when they crash fourth into third. And the infinity loop makes us be in the sacred 8 ball. Where we live in the upside down for a series of cycles, and then we live upright for a series of cycles. So the 8, the figure 8 on its side, but if you close it like this, it'll mirror itself. Right? That was when they collapsed it. It required us to split consciousness. If your consciousness from your dream state is in control of the physical world as it is of your dream, you a problem to the system. Right? And everybody had to leave their celestial forms to come into a human form, use a human avatar, and we all got to work in teams to get out of the condition, flip out the eternity loop.
Right.
The infinity loop. We need the alignment of the Maherta at the same time that we're working on the liberation.
Okay.
Right? For the source energy to get the feedback that we working at curing the problem and we were successful. That's why none of the other elders from the past was able to match the Maherta on time.
Okay.
hit it on time this time. So that flips us out of the eternity loop. So then what's the next dimension after the fourth, the fifth? Right? And the fifth dimension is the age of Aquarius, where all things must be made known.
Okay. Let me so let me Rod, you had mentioned well, you mentioned, and we have mentioned the Anunnaki a couple of times during this interview, and you mentioned Inky. I want to ask you all about Thoth real quick. A real popular name in the internet streets these days. Thoth. BDEL's been talking about the Tahuti energy, Melchizedek, all of that type of energy. Rod Hayes talks about it. RFG talks about this energy. If they say, like I've heard, they say Thoth in the Emerald Tablets, they said Thoth said he observed civilizations rise and fall. So let's say he observed a 25,000 year cycle. What I want to know is that, because we know the science of dimensions and time and things being different, do you think that it's possible for him to observe a 25,000 year cycle? Maybe it was 100 years where he was at. So when he's saying this and he's writing this, we think he lived 100,000 years, but where he was at when he observed this, him being conscious of his multidimensional nature, it was only 100 years where he was at. So what do you think about a lot of the history we get and a lot of the books we get passed down? The time is completely different from what we perceive. We're perceiving these historical books from a 2024 perspective, when in reality, we're not looking at it from a multidimensional nature. And Thoth looked at this shit rise and fall in 100 years, but it was really 25,000 years Earth time. What's your thoughts on that idea in terms of us studying history from the wrong timeline, or using the wrong time reference point?
So a lot of the wrong information that we operate from was given to us deliberately.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you can control the way a person perceives reality, you can use that control in order to use their manifestation ability to work on the behalf of the reality you want them to create.
Right.
Right? Now you got to remember, if right now we wasn't in physical form, time wouldn't exist.
Right.
How long have we been calculating time on Earth?
I don't know. Shit.
How long? On a system that was created by Pope Gregory, and every 360 days away from our birthday, we've been saying we're getting 1 year older every 365 days away from our birthday, and that in itself puts ourselves in a daze, D-A-Z-E. That's where they come up with the term days, D-A-Y-S. You see what I'm saying? It's all an illusion. And then you got the month, M-O-N, dealing with the mana, which means moon, the moon matrix, which is an illusion. You see what I'm saying? It's all, and then you have the days make a week. You see what I'm saying? That's harvesting energy from the body, making you weak, thinking that you're getting older, believing in the illusion of time, the illusion of Maya.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Look, if you go back, history starts with the first dynasty in Egypt. That's recorded history, and the Sumerians is contemporary with the first dynasty. But nobody's talking about the other kings list that before the first dynasty, where one king lived 100,000 Earth years. Right? Because history starts with the first dynastic period in Egypt. That's because the common practice of history comes out of the temple priest of Tahuti to record the records and knowing that the amnesia was coming. The amnesia is a side effect of the collapsing of the fourth dimension into the third. Because you're seeing two minds together at the same time. You that knocked you silly. You was delirious. But before the first dynasty, right, they not telling you the Sphinx was there almost 8,000 years before the pyramids. But that's if you use their dating system, popularized by Sheikh Anta But I tell you what, look.
Y'all, shout out,
you know, if the people in this country really understood the level of innocent Charles Manson was, it would really shake the foundation of everything they believe. Charles Manson was what's called the first whistleblower on record. He was the first one telling us about the LSD program, why he was using LSD, by the way, that he was getting from the government, by the way, that the government admitted to giving to him to give to the children of the family, that he was supposed to be formulating a war with Joseph Sinkyu, who later became the Symbionese Liberation Army. All this is government records.
Man, this is deep.
Right? But we don't want to read no government records. We rather go read some Louis L'Amour or some Anne Rice if we read at all.
Right.
Right. Very few people is nosy as me to go looking and saying what the government say about it. This nigga put it in the book, but what did the government say about it?
Right.
Right. And when you pull the government document, now you got the action. I put a post up and I said, we exposed them lying liars and the lies they lied about and signed they lying ass names to the lies they told. Right? This how you find out who the dirt dealers is, by finding out who created the condition, who told him to create the condition. So if they telling you that it's an operational government program, formerly known as Artichoke, but because they almost got exposed, they changed the name to MK Ultra. Right? Now, when they changed the name to MK Ultra, they drafted all of the greatest scientists from Canada and the United States, because they are in a war, Cold War-like condition with the rise of this guy they call Adolf Hitler. While he's rising, he's doing psychological research too, that he was privy to through the Thule Society, and all of modern psychiatry and psychology is derived from temple priest rites. And if you don't know what the temple priest taught, you would never equate what the psychiatrist, the psychologist, your AA, your ENA, all that is pyramid priest culture. If you go back to the Zulu tribe, when the men come back from war, they got a detox period that they have to go through before they matriculate back into society. Now, why would you need that? We are all post-traumatic stress disorder from a 500-year protracted struggle across generations against an enemy that looked like us, looking us in our face, telling us that other people is the enemy that don't look like us, and got us so convinced that while they killing us, pretending to be us, and blaming it on the people that don't look like us, we ain't never paying attention to why we can't pull ourselves up by our bootstraps that this nigga stole. He stole my boots, but he want me to pull myself up by my bootstraps.
Cold nigga, that's it. That's in live for you, boy. That's in live for you. Type of nigga to tell you, hey, he'll tell you, hey, he go $1 go to the store and buy me a bag of chips. And then he'll call to the store before you get there and tell him, hey, it's a nigga there for to come up there with a red shirt on. Don't sell them no chips. Just to see how it turn out and laugh at, just so he can laugh about it. What type of niggas is that, Roy, man? You know, then you talk you sent me up here to get the chips. Then you call people and tell them don't sell me none.
We call them practical jokers.
You know what I'm saying? Practical jokers. That's it, Lil.
So they asked about Branch Davidians and David Koresh. The thing that I like to tell people is when you see that video, when they saying, I say I'm Jesus Christ, ask to see about 30 seconds before that. Because he gonna tell you that the government is telling people that I said I am Jesus Christ, but they cut everything off but the I am Jesus Christ to justify blowing this man up. They know there ain't no pale-faced, stringy-haired man gonna ever be Jesus, because Jesus is ISIS. So when they have these people that they accuse to be Jesus, that they so-called ceremonially crucifying, right? They not telling you that the reason why they automatically know this person ain't the Christ is because he the wrong gender, he the wrong skin complexion, and the wrong hair texture, right? So they automatically know, but they always use the Christ narrative in order to label people a heretic that they want to execute. And what he was actually doing that had the alcohol, tobacco, and firearms there is he was buying gun replicas of heavy military artillery and converting them into fully operational, and he was selling it to the militias. So the ATF traced militia raids that they had with various militia groups that they slaughtered, like they did them people at Ruby Ridge that had the right to defend themselves and their property. Right? But the government don't care about your rights. When it's time to slaughter you, they just gonna slaughter you. And they use this Jesus thing as the cover story to convince people that David Koresh was totally insane and that he was doing all of these nefarious things. Some of it he might have been doing, but he wasn't doing all of that stuff they say he was doing. Because once they get him to the point where he might become a martyr, they have to hang him in effigy next, which means assassinate the entirety of his character so that there will be no what you call copycat groups rising up to avenge him. They practice on him, but their goal is people like Larry Hoover. Right? So they want to know, how do we get Angel Bay? Go back and look at this stuff, and they literally said they listened to them long enough to make up a code off the language that they was talking, right? And that they created a code language for the Peace Stone Nation. The government just telling you they doing it, and that they using this to entrap Jeff Ford. They telling you in the documentary that this is what they did. They brought in linguists and specialists from around the country to sit there and analyze their natural rhythm of language and to come up with a code that they can use to justify a sting operation that they used to arrest a man that's in prison and people that they called his accomplices and accused them of terrorist activity in a terrorist plot that the CIA created because they tell you that they did it to get Jeff Ford. They admitted it, and he's still in there, and the government is fully 100% aware that just his presence alone affects how these soldiers feel as a man. We don't cry free Angel Bay, Jeff Ford, because the government's effigy hanging tactic, in his case, he's the Godfather buried alive, right? Benny Lee squeaked out their grasp. They had him. He got out. Willie Lord got out and escaped their grasp, but he wouldn't act right by his family, so his family did what they did to him. Right? And they still got other kings in the Vice Lord Nation that's functional and operational to aid and assist the fellow righteous brothers in the rebuilding of our communities, but they don't want to be a part of it if the government involved, because every time the government get involved, they FRS up. They took our breakfast programs, used them in our community long enough to take them to somebody else's community before they cut them off in ours. We didn't see it coming. They gave Angel Bay money. The government gave him money to do what he was doing just so they can accuse him of fraud for doing what he did with the money. It's a grant. It was a grant.